Hello guys, welcome back to my channel again. So in this video we are going to watch the video which name is The Old Man and His God. This is a book name Discovering the Spirit of India, and this is our chapter number 5 by Sudhamurthy. So guys, if you haven't watched any of my previous any of this book's previous lessons, so don't worry. I will upload the whole playlist here, so you will able to check it out all of this. Okay, so let's get started. Yes, so our lesson name is The Deserving Candidate. So let's get started. A few years back, I was on a selection committee. We were recruiting people for various posts, most of which had a high remuneration. As a result, there was a lot of pressure on us poor committee members. Overnight, I found my popularity had increased. Many times over, forgotten relatives dropped by at my house. Friends I had lost touch with appeared out of the blue. Religious had started telling me how important it was to help people from one's community. Ex-students suddenly remembered when Teachers' Day came and sent me cards. Even in the temple, I started getting extra helpings of prasad. I was beginning to enjoy the newfound comforts of life. Unfortunately for those people, all core committee members were very honest, and we had decided on the day of our first meeting that we would not entertain any request. Recruitment would be done based solely on merit. During one of our interview sessions one day, a young girl walked in. Her name was Nandita, and she was good looking, smart and well dressed. We asked our first standard question: "Why do you think you are suitable for this job?" The girl replied, "Great deal of confidence. I can handle the pressures of this job well." She was speaking with an American accent, so I asked her where she was from. "I am from Bangalore," she replied, "but most of my relatives stay in the US, so I go there during all my holidays." "Where have you been in the US?" "We have many clients there. My uncle Ramakrishnan is a very famous Silicon Valley industrialist. My aunt is a correspondent for New York Times. My cousin Rohit works in the White House." So I shuttled between New York, Washington, and Francisco in our work. One is required to interact with different kinds of people often. Oh, meeting people and talking to them is not a problem. I enjoyed that. Have you experience of that? Have you any experience of that? Yes, I party a lot and meet lots of people. That is not the same as meeting people on the business. I said, and we moved on the technical question. She answered adequately well, and we finished the interview soon after. As she was leaving, Nandita hesitated near the door. Then she turned and asked, "Can I ask you something?" I always like it when girls ask questions. For too long, the definition of a good girl in our society is one who does not question too much and meekly accepts everything. But I like those who dare to break out of this mold and speak their minds. So I told Nandita to go ahead. She said, "The salary you are offering for this job is quite less." I was taken aback. This was not the kind of questions or remarks I was expecting. I answered, "It is very good when you compare it with other companies. Oh, it is just enough to pay the rent for an apartment and the driver and the cook's salary. I am used to these comforts you see." "But you said you live with your parents." "The company has a bus and we have an excellent canteen. After I start earning, I want to live in on my own." That is what everyone does nowadays. And with these words and a pitiful look at me for my ignorance, she left. As usual, I reached home late that evening. My other admonished me, saying, "You should have remembered that we have to go to Sarayu's grandmother's birthday. She has already called thrice. Even if it is late to go and say a hello, you have to live within a society and can't remain engrossed in your work always." Like an obedient child, I went to Sharau, Sharayu's house. The usual kind of party was going on. Men were talking about politics and sports. Women were discussing the next party. And since there was an event manager, the children were busy. It was a hot day, and trays of cool drinks were doing the rounds. Suddenly, I thought I saw a girl who looked alike like Nandita. She was wearing a sari and was serving drinks on the guests. When I tried looking at her closely, she turned away. I was amazed. I went to Sharayus and asked who the pretty girl serving in the drinks was. Oh, that is Nandita. She is a smart and bright girl. Her father owns a canteen in my husband's office. Our office has sponsored her education. She has completed her engineering recently and is searching for a job. She is a quick learner and adjusts well with everybody. We have invited her to help out today. If you are ever having a party, I would strongly recommend it asking her father to do the catering. I was speechless. Then the interviews carried on for the whole of that week. The last candidate to walk on and in was a boy in his early 20s. He was ordinarily dressed and seemed to be on the quieter side. His answers were all up to the mark and well thought out. I want to know more about him as it is always interesting to talk to bright young minds. You answered the question about computer science very well. Since when have you been interested in the area? Shyly he said, when I was very young. What age? I was persistent, probably about 8 years. Why so early? My mother is a school teacher and often I was alone at home. When she was away at work, the best way to pass the time was to attend some classes. How I know that could not be the only reason. He was obviously very bright and his mother must have spent a lot of time channelizing his talents in the right direction. I realized this boy will not boast about his background, but I wanted to know more. What about your father? What does he do? What does he do? The boy thought for some time, then he replied, does it matter? You need only look at my capabilities. If you find me suitable, please accept me or reject me if you don't. How much salary are you expecting? The boy said a figure which was higher than what we were offering. How do you justify such a high salary for your experience? I will justify it by working hard and taking bottom line responsibility. I will ensure that my work is of the highest standard. Do you mind telling me why you want a higher salary? I want to donate a part of it to a trust which helps bright students continue their education if they can't pay the fees. I was touched by his answer. After this, there was nothing more to ask. When the boy left me, was and amazed that we wanted to take him. As we were talking, the clerk who was handing out the travel allowance to those who had come, the clerk who was handing out the travel allowance to those who had come from out of town for the interview walked in. He said, "Could you send for the last candidate?" He did not count his allowance. He said he stayed with his aunt and came to town on some personal work too. Now I was amazed at the boy's honesty. I looked closely at his form and the permanent address. He was the son of a very successful doctor. Obviously, money of fame had not robbed him of his honesty and simplicity. Now I was amazed at the boy's honesty. I looked closely at his form and at the permanent address. He was the son of a very successful doctor. Obviously, money or fame had not robbed him of his honesty and simplicity. Thanks for watching. Yes, I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please give a big thumbs up on my video. Please like, if you like to share, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.